Can you
There
see me?
you
Okay.
are. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
Good. I'm trying to see if I can get you side by side. Hi, Steve. How are you? I see you. Never mind. I don't think we can. It's all right.
That's okay.
We'll deal with it.
Hi,
Hello.
Steve.
Steve, how are you today, sir? I see you're back to making your amazing TikToks. Funny and deep.
It's always good to have both sides.
Yes. Yes. So how are you today?
Good.
Nervous?
No, actually, I was excited for this
I was
live.
too.
I think we have a lot of good stuff to talk about. So, and it's been a while since our last live.
Yes, our last one will you were just going through a breakup.
Yes.
But we'll get into that as soon as the live actually starts.
Okay.
But yeah, so I don't know, I had therapy today and then I went and gave blood and that was about it. It's been rainy here. I don't know is it by you? Has it been raining a lot?
Not raining today. It did yesterday, but I think it's supposed to be like super hot next week, so
Okay.
just in time for my birthday.
When's your birthday?
May 14th.
Mine's the 16th.
Is it?
Dead
We're
serious.
so much alike. That's so funny. Male and female version of each other.
That's how I present it to everyone when I talk about you. I'm like, they're like, what is their content? I'm like, just picture the female version of me. It's the exact opposite. It's from her perspective. It's pretty cool. That's why I related. It's funny as I was going through all the people that I follow, and I've been deleting people that don't make any. I'm not deleting, but unfollowing people that don't make any content or that I don't interact with. So I got all the way down to like the first people, and you were like number 15 that I followed on TikTok.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember that too when you started commenting on my stuff, and I'm like, who is this guy? He sounds just like me.
Yeah. Yep. So it's been about a year now. Next month will be a year that I've been on
TikTok. That's crazy.
So.
And look how far you've grown, and congrats on almost 100K. That is awesome.
Thank you. We're getting there. You too. You're right there. We're right next to each other.
Right?
I did not expect that out of that video. What's funny about that video is I was laying on the couch here and I was just kind of thinking, I was watching a movie and I was thinking about the masculine feminine dynamic, and then I was thinking about my marriage and how it failed, and I'm like, well, I'm going to go make a video on it. But just a quick one, like one of those tagline videos that I like to make. And the first 15 tries were completely different. They weren't even that video. And then I was like, you know what, I'm just going to try something. I had one take and I made it and I posted it just to get something on the page for the day, and it just took off like crazy. It was nuts. There was no rhyme or reason. But I see now why it resonated.
Did I glitch out?
No.
Okay, hold on a second. Am I still there?
No, you're. Amy's in Central Illinois, and I'm just south of Chicago. May 20th. Tiffany, hi, how are you? Thank you for the heart. That's amazing. Jen, so excited. Oh. Okay. So, you want to get started? Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Okay. You take the lead.
Miss Amy Grace is gracing us with her presence tonight. We haven't talked in about 3 months, I believe, 4 months, something like that. But thank you for thank you for coming on my live tonight so we could talk about all the good stuff.
Yeah.
Would you do me a favor and let everybody know who you are and what your kind of background is and all this stuff?
Yeah, I live in Illinois. I'm a mom. I'm a writer. I've written and published a couple poetry books. I make candles on the side. And then I've been on TikTok a couple years, but I've only really been active on TikTok the past year. But yeah, it's kind of grown into my little outlet as well. So
it's almost like journaling, but video journaling.
It is like video journaling, yeah.
So we're going to talk about a number of things tonight. we're going to take
I,
breaks as we're talking, so to field some of your guys' questions. But what we're the main points that we're going to talk about tonight, I'm gonna list off here. So if you hear something that you're interested in, we'll get to it tonight. If we don't get to your question right away, we'll get to it later at some point. Wendy, my moderator, will be texting me the question. So if I don't acknowledge it in the comments section right away, I am getting them, and I will get to it. So we're going to talk about our viral videos real quick. First of all, then we're going to talk about how to communicate your needs with when you have an emotionally unavailable partner from the female and male perspective. We're going to talk about why it's hard for men to express their own needs or emotions. We're going to talk about love languages and how how to learn each other's and how to reciprocate them, and also being by yourself if you're a single parent or a single person, how to fulfill your love languages on your own. Um, how to help other emotionally unavailable men take the steps to be available for their partners, which is a pretty common theme that I've seen in my video this week. Um, men's
yeah,
identity,
mine as well.
but yeah, men's
Mine,
identity being in, so men's identity being providing financially and protecting, but not seeing that their spouse needs, that their spouse are alone, are feeling alone, um, and need more emotional and mental stimulation or connection. Um, Compatibility and feeling like it's a constant resistance and work in the relationship. Um, Other thing, let's see, hurt in marriage isn't all. How, so you had brought this one up, how you had heard that marriages aren't all about love and feelings, but those things shouldn't be continually dismissed in the confines of the relationship.
right.
And then differences between the boring phase and relationships, feeling alone in the relationship. And then how could you and I have possibly saved our relationships, or what would we might what we've done differently would have changed the outcome.
Hmm.
So I give you the floor, ma'am. Your viral video is pretty amazing. You want to talk about it?
Thank you. Yeah, I mainly said in that video that when someone isn't right for you, you start to feel like something is wrong with you. And then I referred to my previous marriage and how my ex and I were very completely different people, and our differences did not work together, to help each other. That I just felt like it was constant resistance all the time. And in my situation, my ex always felt like he wasn't enough, and I always felt like I was too much. And I got to a point where I'm like, you know what? We both have a reason to feel that way because we're very different people. And, he didn't know how to be more, because he didn't know how to be more in the areas that I needed him to be more in. Um, he would try to be more in all the areas that I didn't, thus making him feel like he was never enough.
What
And
were
then on
those?
my end, what?
What
Sorry.
were those mores that you needed from him?
Um, the main thing was emotional intimacy, like wanting a deeper connection and affection and, meaningful conversations and, everything in the emotional intimacy area. And I've told you before, he wasn't an emotionally available person. And so it's like he didn't know how to be that. So then he would try to make up for it in other areas, or like I said, he was one that found his identity in his job. So, he thought as long as he was the provider, which to me, I feel like women think that the word provider, it should mean so much more. But I feel like like men, they automatically money, financial. And
Yep.
so that was my ex-husband. He thought that as long as he was a provider, that's all he needed to do. And, I should be happy and everything should be fine.
Yep.
But yeah, so then, and I constantly felt like I was suppressing those parts of myself all the time, and trying to like be less. I always felt too much, but to me those were like very basic and simple needs, but he made me feel like it was a lot all the time. And I think too, when like really simple needs continue to get like dismissed and ignored, it turns into something big. It's almost like, obviously it gets bigger and bigger when to me, it's like, this is so simple. Why are you not doing this? You know?
Right.
So it got to a point in our situation where it just felt like we were trying to love each other more than we were actually loving each other. And we were trying to be what the other person wanted or needed more than we were actually being ourselves. So it was like exhausting. It's like,
Yep.
why can't we just be ourselves? Why is this constant resistance all the time? So that type of thing. I couldn't believe how many people related to that, but you know, that dynamic. I posted other videos kind of on that similar dynamic, and I've always had a lot of people relate to it. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it, and to answer your question from a man's point of view is we weren't taught how. That's not to say that all men weren't taught how to be emotionally available, because there are some good families out there, men that come from good families, but a vast majority, like my story is by 15 I was pretty much alone. I was on my own. I was raising myself. My parents had split. My dad was out partying. My mom was picking up the pieces from her life, and I was just doing
Mm,
my own thing. And everything that happened in my life, I never had anyone to go to emotionally, to deal with breakups, to deal with my parents' divorce, to deal with ex-girlfriends, to deal with deaths when my grandparents died. Nothing. So I chose ways to cope, and it was working, it was drinking, it was, you know, excessive partying, it was girls, whatever. I chose all the wrong ways to cope. So
mm-hmm.
moving into
So
my, go ahead.
sorry. I was just gonna ask. So you don't think like your ex-wife or any woman made you feel like your identity had to be in a provider, like you had already felt that way at a young age, or
Society told me that, when I kind of leaned on my friends who were in similar family dynamics. We just decided to go to work. Like, we're just going to be men, we're going to go to work, we're going to work hard, we're going to, our testosterone's, coursing through our veins. We're just going to be men, or what we thought men were, because we
yeah.
weren't taught how to be men.
Yeah, and that's the part that makes me feel bad too, because I made a video addressing that, and not to bash men, but to like help men out, because I feel like that is one thing where I know a lot of women in that situation where they feel so alone in their situations, or they feel like married single moms, and I feel like a lot of the men are actually good men. It's not like these are bad guys. It's just like they don't know how to like get themselves outside of that. And it's like that could be the one thing that could save their relationship or their marriage.
Yes,
So
that's why I made that video. If you look at that video, so let's just think of it this way: that I'm talking to my past self in the mirror, and I'm telling myself that she's in her masculine because, she's in her she's in her masculine because
yeah.
you're not providing a safe place for her to be in her feminine. And that was the truth with my ex-wife. She had begged me for years to take her on dates, to be more emotionally available, to have more adult time, more adult conversations at night. And I was just
It's the
like, you know
same thing.
what? I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm working my ass off. I'm working 6, 7 days a week. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
providing. I'm home every night. Like, my dad was in the bar. He was never around. So
Yeah.
I thought I was doing better than him by being home and working my butt off to provide a great place for my family. And I was doing better than he did, but it's like I was married to the ideal of my dad and not married to my wife.
Right. Not listening to her needs.
Not at all. And to be honest with
Yeah.
you, I never thought she would leave.
Most men don't, though, and that's the thing, is they'll say that they were completely blindsided. But and that's my other thing, is like, just because something doesn't feel like a problem to you, like maybe you don't think anything's a problem, everything looks and seems fine on the outside, doesn't mean that she's not completely falling apart on the inside, and that there's all these issues that haven't continued not to be addressed and swept under the rug. And so that's what happens is, a lot of times the women will end up like trying for years and years and years of nothing, then they end up shutting down,
Yep.
and then eventually they're done. And then
Yep.
and then the guy will start to try and be like, wait a minute, then he starts trying, and then he'll say, well, you gave up on me. But it's like, well, where were you for like 20 years?
Yeah,
you
and it's
know
too late. It's too late by that point, because you guys have already
yeah.
emotionally detached, and it's not necessarily too late, but from that point, it will take a lot of work to get back.
I will say, as someone who's been in that situation, and it took me a while to reach that shutting down phase, but once I was there, it's like I could not get myself back. I was just completely
Yeah.
checked out. And I told you, we went to therapy for 6 months, and nothing could break through that I was already shut down, because I had been emotionally shut down long before that.
Right. Right. Yeah, and it doesn't
So,
always work, and it really takes two. That's the other thing too. Like you have, both parties have to be really willing to fight for the marriage. And like you said, you were checked out and you weren't willing. He may have been just there, just to participate, to make you feel good. But it really takes two people at that point to, thank you for the hearts, to really make it work. And if you're beating your head against the wall with someone who is not reciprocal, you're just wasting your time.
yeah, I agree.
So, but I found it very interesting. And this was, so with my viral video, I had 95% of the women in the comments. There's 450,000 comments between the two, uh, not comments. There's 100,000 comments, but 95% of them were women saying, "Oh my God, this is what I've been feeling and thinking. I just couldn't put it into words."
Right.
And I was dumbfounded at how normal this is. It's so normal, and it reiterates and reaffirms why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I'm making these videos of my story as a man, from when my ex-wife left and we divorced, to an emotionally unavailable man, to a man who coped unhealthily, and then realizing that I had two daughters that I needed to figure out how to be emotionally available for, or I was going to ruin them too. And I
Right.
think if I can get that narrative across, men might, maybe they don't do it for their wife or their partner, but maybe they do it for their kids.
For their kids. Yeah. I mean, I think that's great. I think I love all your content, and I feel the same way when I share some of the stuff I do. It's like I don't like to get too personal a lot, but then again, I know if it could just make other people feel less alone, because I know how alone I felt in my situation. And not just in my marriage, but also feeling like people I would talk about this with didn't really understand either. They would be like, well, he's a good guy. I don't understand. Or you have a good life. And I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to go cry in my closet by myself. Like,
So tell that story again. You've told it to me before a few times, about when you guys were out to dinner and that gentleman said something to you, or I forget what was that video where you
we
just
were with a
cried?
group of people. Yeah, we were with a group of people, and this guy was hitting on me, and he's like, wow, you're beautiful. And then my ex-husband stepped in, and he said, yeah, she's beautiful, and she's my wife. And I was like, that was like one of 3 times in 7 years like I had ever heard him say I was beautiful or anything like that. So I just broke down crying, and I was like, I didn't realize how much like I needed to hear that. And my love languages are the same as yours: words of affirmation, physical touch. So
Yeah.
just hearing him say that one time, I was like, I just cried. So yeah,
Well, that's a good that's a good transition into love languages. Let's do that.
let's do it.
So so my ex-wife, and I just want to preface this with, my ex-wife and I are great friends now, and we co-parent well. So I'm in no way, shape, or form degrading her or demeaning her. I'm just talking about what was actually happening at the time when we split. So she grew up in a household where physical touch and words of affirmation weren't prevalent. It wasn't part of their dynamic.
So this
So
is
I talk a lot about, people are really quick to judge people for being narcissistic or whatever these taglines are. But a
yeah,
lot of the time, not a lot of the time, but some of the time, it's people just don't have the self awareness. They weren't raised in this environment that you're
yeah.
trying to make them understand. So they don't. And that was the case for me and my ex wife. I
Mm-hmm.
was I was raised in a very loving, touching when I was younger. So
Same.
before my
Same exact
parents,
situation. Just
yeah, and
yeah.
then he was, or she was not. So it was a battle for 17 years. We were together for 20, so it was a battle for 17-ish years of her not understanding how to reciprocate the love language, which I didn't even know back then. But I knew there was something that wasn't there. There was some kind of connection or energy or something that I was missing, and she just
Yep.
wasn't providing it. Obviously, it didn't happen until after we were divorced that I figured out what love languages were, and it all made sense.
Same
But
exact thing. Yeah. I wish I knew all of this back then. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
so and the physical touch love language has nothing to do with sex. It has everything to do with the intimate connection, with the
right.
bonding, with the the back rubs, the hand on your thigh, the holding hands, all that, the PDA, that type of stuff. So
Yeah, and I will say about that is I made a video about love languages too, and I really think that all love languages, most love languages can be learned and worked on except for the physical touch one. Because and we've
yeah,
talked about this before that like for somebody whose love language is physical touch and they're with someone who doesn't have that love language, it's like we know if it's being forced or it's not natural. Like and that's how I felt with my ex. It never felt natural. Like hugging him felt cold and like a robot. Like it was never natural. And I constantly felt like we were like two magnets at the opposite end trying to come together, never connecting, like
yeah,
just constant. It's just like I wanted so badly to just be myself and be that lovey, affectionate person, but I felt like I never could. Like every time I got a reaction that didn't feel right or natural or normal, I
yeah,
kind of just closed up inside and I stopped like trying.
yeah.
So,
And I will tell you from a man's perspective, growing up in the 80s and 90s, what didn't help was porn, because it gave me a false sense of what intimacy was supposed to be. So that was another battle for us for a while until I kind of figured that one out and gave it up. But it was, for a good 10 years, it was a battle of like, hey, this isn't how it's supposed to be.
yeah.
She's trying to tell me, and I just wasn't willing to understand or willing to learn, or just, I had this mindset of I know everything. I'm the man. I'm gonna do what I want. She
Well, and
was.
that's another difference between men and women too. In that areas, men will automatically like think when you hear intimacy, they think sex, like automatically. But for women, that is like such a broad area. There's so much more in the realm of emotional intimacy. Like a lot like conversation. Like there's
Yes.
so many other things that can connect you to your partner with emotional intimacy than just sex. Like
Yep.
so
Yep.
like, guys think sex is the answer, financial stability, that's all you got to do. And
Yeah.
there's just
Exactly.
and for me it was like very simple things, like I said, it was just can we just have a conversation, like we never talked ever. So
Yeah.
I mean
That
just a
was the
simple
same.
conversation. I'm like it's just a conversation.
Yeah.
But
Exactly. And that's and our next bullet point was how to communicate your needs
yeah.
with an emotionally unavailable partner. And I read this book that really changed my life on that ideal, and it's this book right here. It's
What
called
is it? I can't
the
read backwards.
it's called the Four Agreements. Did
Oh, you told me about that one.
I told you about
Yeah.
that one. So the agreement number one is be impeccable with your words. It's be very clear and concise of what you want. So if you're addressing your man about emotional unavailability, attacking him, or what I got a lot in the comments of that viral video was, I wish I could send this to him, or I'm sending this to him, and I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that,
Yeah.
because you're just attacking him. You're just making him feel like he's not good enough, and you're gonna push him even farther away. The key, I would say, from a man's perspective, is to make him feel safe. And it doesn't mean, what I mean by that is go to him and say, hey babe, be very clear. This is what is lacking in our marriage. It doesn't make you, it doesn't make you any less attractive to me, but these are just some things that we need to work on. I need you to work on with me. Be
Mm,
very clear in what you need and concise in what you say. And then also, this is the most important part, is give him suggestions, or give him, a roadmap of how to do it. Just don't
mm,
say I need this, I need that, and then let him figure it out, because we don't think like that as men. We're fixers. We're A to B. We want to know what we have to get done and then get it done.
Problem solvers.
Problem
Yeah.
solvers. So if you
That's,
come to us with a problem and a solution,
yeah.
then you're more prone to get him to do what he wants. But the other thing is too, if he's harboring traumas from his past or his childhood, you have to make it very clear to him that none of those things get fixed without help. You
Hmm.
don't have to tell me what's going on right now, but I want to be there for you so you can go get help. If you choose to hire a life coach, if you choose to hire a therapist, I'm not going to look at you any differently. I'm going to actually I think it's more attractive. I think it's very emotionally strong. I think it's courageous for you to do it. Reaffirm him that these are all good things and then let him decide if he wants to do it.
Hmm.
He may not want to. And the truth of the matter is, if you have a man who is unwilling to go get help or fix what needs to be fixed, then you have a choice. You either accept him for who he is or you make a change. You can accept him for who he is, which is emotionally unavailable, and you can go find your emotional availability elsewhere with a friend, a best friend, with a woman's group, with there's plenty of things that you could do to go find your emotional satisfaction. You just have, and if you know what I mean, if you're married to him and you want to stay married to him, that's just the reality that you're going to have to accept.
And there are people that are able to do that. And I tried to do that. I really did. I just was not able to. But I mean, there was somebody that commented on one of my videos too, saying that she just accepted that her husband wasn't affectionate. Like that was their love language difference was like the one thing that was missing. But she accepted it because he showed love in the other ways, and kind of take the good with the bad kind of thing. And I think that's great. You're able to do that. And if that is like the one and only area, a lot of people can do that. For me, there was so many other areas. That was one of many things for me. So
Right.
that is why I wasn't able to like accept, because there was like a million things. There was a lot of things in my situation. But if there is just one area, yeah, maybe try to find, if you can find other ways. Um,
Yeah. How would let me see, how would that reciprocate to a man needing something? So let's say a man isn't getting appreciated, which is what we need from our women. um, how could he confront her about it? Like, say they both work and they're both busy all day, but he needs more appreciation from her.
um, what can a woman do
What can a man do to help his woman
if it's
appreciate
not getting
him?
enough appreciation?
Yes, yes.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not a man, so I don't, you should answer that. You're a man.
Well, I was trying to
um,
think. Yeah, I'm trying to.
I don't know.
Let me think here. How did I? Maybe I worded that wrong.
Like if okay, because like for me, the emotional connection was missing. My main thing was feeling alone in my situation. But I had made a video on this to help other people identify, if there's other things playing a part in that loneliness you feel and feeling alone. And for me, there was other parts. It wasn't just my ex. It was the fact that I had unhealed childhood trauma that I wasn't aware of then. It was the fact that I was a stay-at-home mom, and for some reason, being a stay-at-home mom only grew the existing feelings I already had, like grew that loneliness. And
Mm,
the other part of that was I didn't feel like I could be myself fully, and that had a lot of that had to do with being with my ex. I didn't feel like when I tried to like open up and be myself, it was received well. So then I would shut back down. But then also, being a stay at home mom, I also like questioned, you know, is this my only purpose? Like, I love being a mom and a wife, but I need a purpose outside of this as well. And so I think if that is one big thing you're feeling in your situation, like alone and loneliness, identify if there's other things playing a part. And especially if you're stay-at-home mom, you have to find something that gives you fulfillment outside of your kids and your spouse. Like you have to. Um, so I don't.
yes,
I'm
for sure.
trailing off. I kind of got off track here, but like, if you can identify other things playing a part, and then other ways you can try to fill that void. Um,
Right.
or like men trying to fill the appreciation void. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what would
Fair
help.
enough. Um, how could you, so you're a single mom right now. You're not dating, right?
No, by choice.
Right. Me
I
too.
don't want to do. Yeah, I'm not looking. I'm not trying.
What
Yeah.
are some ways that you can fulfill your love languages for yourself? Being physical touch. I know physical touch is a hard one, but I have some ideas of my own.
Well, my kids. I mean, my daughter and I cuddle all the time.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
that fulfills that area for me. Words of affirmation. I'm a writer, so like writing is my outlet. That like
Right.
that is a form of therapy for me is writing.
And
But
we get enormous amount of affirmation on TikTok too.
yeah, yeah. Well, this is my other outlet, and we're using words. Your thing is words too. So
Yep.
yeah, I mean it is fulfilling for me in some way. So
So for the physical touch one, I found that like massages are really good. Like go get a massage, go get,
mm,
for a woman maybe pedicures, get your pedicures, manis and pedis. Um, yeah, words of affirmation, like I said, with the kids, I they're not really good at it, but it's a great opportunity for me to teach them to be good at it. Like, hey, here's a great opportunity for you to affirm your dad for doing something. Like, so I use it as a teaching moment, which kind of helps. My youngest is physical touch and quality time. My oldest is quality time and acts of
mm,
service. So my youngest will always hug me and she'll always cuddle with me still at 15. But my
yeah,
oldest wants nothing to do with it. Like it's super
yeah,
awkward for her. And
yeah. My son, no, but my daughter, yeah, cuddle all the time.
yeah, so but I never really thought about that until someone had asked me, and then I get like these, those Theraguns. They do these like 15-minute Theragun massages at the gym. So I do those like twice a week, and it just seems to fulfill that physical touch need for now, right? Until,
Yeah,
I mean, it's not completely filling it, but it's filling the void for now, basically, is what
yeah.
I'm trying to get at.
Okay.
So, um, yeah.
Yep.
Let's see. What do we got? If you guys have any questions, let's take some questions. Let's see what they have
Yeah,
going on.
I saw Leah was on here. I don't know if she's still on here, but hi, Leah. I missed some people.
Did you see all the
I meant to say
craziness from?
hi to a few people, but yeah, Leah, and I said hi to Steve. But
Did you see all the craziness from Las Vegas with Leah and them?
yeah. I always enjoy Leah's videos. Like they always make me
Yes,
laugh, always put me in a good mood. So
yes,
when I'm
absolutely.
feeling down, Leah.
Gardening, that's a good idea. Watching,
I
yeah, that would
suck at gardening, but I'm really trying. I'm trying to be a plant lady right now.
have.
I'm trying. I got flowers and I'm determined to keep them alive. I'm really trying.
Did I? Yes, Jeff. So I did suffer from addiction. I started drinking when I was 13 and I finally got sober when I was 40. So 27 years of drinking. And my drinking was strictly because of it was my coping mechanism for not having an emotional outlet and for me being abandoned by my parents when I was 15 is what it seemed to me to be. I didn't realize all this until I was in my 40s when I got sober and I was going to therapy. But yes, I have been in therapy for 6 years every week pretty much, and I've been sober now for over 2 years. And both of those things have been completely life changing for me and my family. So,
That's awesome.
Laura, congratulations, 2 years sober. Yes,
Yeah.
animals. That
Congrats.
Sophie, that's a great idea too. Animals can definitely
Yeah.
help you bridge the gap when you're healing or when you're dealing with something for sure. What should I do if my spouse financially abuses me? Hmm. Well, I really can't. I really don't want to give you advice on that. I would say reach out to a therapist. Is where I'm gonna
Like
go with that one. And
like
how? What
meaning
do you
holds
mean?
finances over your head type of thing, because that I kind of felt that way sometimes. Like I was treated like a child. We didn't He didn't want to have a joint bank account with me. We were married, we didn't have a joint bank account. I felt like I was like given an allowance, and a lot
Gotcha.
of times a lot of times I was like afraid to ask for money. I would ask my best friend for money, you know, and
Oh,
I'm
wow.
a really, you know me, I'm a really thrifty person. Like
Yeah.
I don't shop a lot. I don't spend a lot. So it was like for me having to go and ask my best friend for money over my husband, there's something not right there.
Yes, for sure.
Um, but yeah, you shouldn't feel like, especially if you're a stay-at-home mom, you shouldn't feel like finances are held over your head, you know, because I always say this, they might, like he has said to me before, like, you know, this is my house or I pay the bills or whatever. And I'm like, I make the house a home, you know, I do everything else for the house, you know? So that definitely shouldn't
Yep.
be held over everyone's head.
So I talk about a man and a woman being the safe place for each other in 5 areas, and those 5 areas are physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and financial. And what I mean by financial is that they have a decent work ethic. They, you know, whatever the dynamic is, if one person is the breadwinner and the other is a stay-at-home mom, that's fine. But um, there has to be an understanding there that it's not like what you just said. It's not going to be used. We're partners in our
Held
finances.
over our head. Yeah.
You know, but they have a strong work ethic. You know, they're financially responsible when it comes to bills, paying their bills on time. They don't need to make $1 million, but they need to be able to support themselves. And they're not financially irresponsible. They're not into gambling or sports betting or just, you know, blowing money without asking. You know, I've heard of, you know, a good idea is to make a limit of what each person can spend without having to ask the other, and that's a boundary that you set with each other. Um, so yeah, that should be how. I mean, you have to figure out what works for you, and if you're being excluded or the money's being hidden from you or you're not in control at all, that's that should raise a red flag, and you should, you know, first of all, you should make sure you're safe before you bring it up, and you should
Mm-hmm.
talk to someone about it. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a life coach yet. Neither is Amy. We're just talking about our experiences. So if we can't answer your questions, don't hold it against us because we just aren't professionals at this yet. Oh, shit. What I do? Um, Someone asked me a question specifically. Where was it? What was the pivotal point in your decision to stop drinking? My daughters. I was spiraling out of control. I had already decided to. I already did. I already made the agreement with myself that I was out of control and I needed to stop about a year and a half before I did. But about 6 months before I went to rehab, my daughter was like, "Hey, you know what? If you're gonna keep doing this, just stop picking us up. Stop hanging out with us. Just you're putting all of your life before us." So that was when I was like, "Okay, I better change. I better do something."
Yeah.
So my sister and her hubby have a deal. What was the pill? Jeffrey said he traded alcohol for pain pills after I shot myself because the pills aren't visible. Yeah, yeah, Jeffrey, I feel you on that one. I mean, at the end of my drinking, I was in a drunken psychosis the last 3 weeks. I was drinking every day, all day. I was seeing shit. It was bad. It was so bad.
Yeah.
If you guys have questions for Amy's, please ask before we dive back into the content.
I told you my son's father was an alcoholic for 16 years of his life,
Yeah.
which, you know, I had for a long time, I had a lot of resentment about that because it's like I was left to deal with everything, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm just grateful for the fact that he's finally sober. 2 years sober now. So
That's awesome.
mm-hmm.
And do you still have conversations with him? Do you still interact with him at all?
I can actually have conversations with him now. When he was struggling with alcoholism for 16 years, it was like impossible. And, you know, he was in and out, kind of not really present. Just, you never knew. Like, he was in rehab a lot. Like, I never knew when he was on a binge or what.
Right, right.
But now that he is sober, we actually get along really good. Like we have actual real conversations about our son and we get along. So he seems just so more clear minded and level headed, like a complete different person.
And Tiffany asked, how is he with your kids now?
Well, my son I had with him when I was 18, and my daughter is with my ex-husband. Um, he does, he's has communication with my son. My son will see him every once in a while, but there's no like set anything. But my son also just turned 18, so
Yeah.
it's so weird. It is so weird thinking that I had him at 18 and he's 18 now, and just like, how did 18 years go by like this? But he's in his life now, so they communicate. He calls them regularly. Tyson will stay with him sometimes. So yeah.
Sorry, I gotta text my daughter.
That's okay. And since he's been sober the past couple of years, he's, been consistent with child support and stuff. All the times he was struggling with alcoholism, it was like, I never knew if I was going to get anything. There was a long time I got nothing, and yeah, it was just kind of all over the place. But
all right, let's jump back in. Yeah, alcohol is socially accepted, and it's alcohol is one of the worst when it's abused.
yeah.
Separated, divorce, still continues drinking and takes every other. Okay, let's see. We talked about that compatibility. You want to talk about compatibility?
Sure.
So you were where? Let me start there. The last time we talked a few months back, you were just getting out of a relationship, and you were kind of going in the middle of going through the grieving process and dealing with like just finding yourself again.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you now?
I'm in actually a pretty calm place. Like I've been working on healing things that I need to heal. I also told you, like, this past year, I felt like a really strong pull in my heart to get my heart right with God again, because, as I mentioned before, I did have a pretty strong faith in my marriage at one point, and when, things weren't, when I noticed like things weren't changing and stuff, I started to like not stop trusting God. I started to just shut down in all areas, and one of those areas being pushing God away. And
Right.
so yeah, the past year I've just, working on reconnecting with God again, with my faith, and, healing things that I need to, and just focusing on myself and my kids right now. And I'm not I'm not looking, I'm not trying, I'm not out there dating, but I want
I,
to keep myself in an open place. I don't want to be negative. I want to be in an open place.
yeah. The one question for you, real quick.
Since my divorce, is that
Yeah, since
that
you're divorced,
it's been 5 years. 5 years in July. So
it's been 6 for me. So, and yeah, I'm in the same place. I have so much stuff going on with work and the kids and this new business that I want to start. There's it wouldn't be fair to anyone for me to get in a relationship with them,
yeah.
because I would only be able to give them like a half a day a week. It would take a really understanding and a really busy and a really independent person to date me right
Mm-hmm.
now, because I just don't have the time, and I'm not willing to make the time either. Is the problem?
Yeah.
uh, yeah. So you're working out a lot too. What else?
Yeah. Because I gained 20 pounds over over the past year too. Like I gained 20 pounds, and I think because I was in a relationship, that relationship I was in was almost a year. And we were just doing a lot more, eating a lot more, drinking a lot more. Like everything was more. And, I ended up gaining 20 pounds, and I've lost 10 of it. But like I've been working out every day and focused on that, and just kind of just doing my own thing and being happy with my own stuff and my own space. And
Yeah.
like I feel content. Like I feel content. There is that hopeless romantic in me that like kind of longs for that companionship, but I also am okay. Like I feel happy on my own. I feel fine.
It's a pretty cool place to be, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of confusing sometimes, because I'm like I like being alone, but then every once in a while I'm like, oh, it'd be nice to have someone. But you know. But for the most part, like, I'm an introvert, I'm independent. I like being alone. I need a lot of alone time, but
And how do you, so there's a couple of things I want to touch on. So let's touch on that real quick. How do you express that to your partner? So
that I like.
what went wrong with your past relationship? I know, but tell everybody why it failed.
Well, the main reason why we had to call it quits was because he wanted kids. He wanted kids with me. But like before we even started talking at the very beginning, I was upfront about the fact that I already had 2 kids. I didn't want any more. So if that was going to be an issue for him, I said, let's not even talk any further because I would hate for things to work out and us waste each other's time. So he agreed to that and he was fine with it. And then, a few months in, he started kind of like saying things here and there, like when I have kids, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I thought you were okay with not having kids. So I kind of knew deep down that that was going to be the reason why we had to end
Yeah.
things, and it did. Um, but like compatibility wise, we were very compatible. We had a lot of fun together. We laughed a lot. We enjoyed our time together. Similar interests and stuff like that. But he also, being younger with no kids, he had a lot more time and less responsibility than I did. So I'm like, being a single mom, I had so much going on. I had more responsibility, and obviously kids come first. And, so it was kind of hard to like balance that. If you're a single parent who is dating another single parent, you both kind of understand. You have your own responsibilities. It's a little easier. But if you're a single parent dating somebody who doesn't have kids, it's harder for them to understand why you're not available 24/7.
Yes. And I
So
think it's a good indicator too. If you're dating someone with kids and they're available all the time, that's a red flag.
yeah, that's no. So like for me, I got a little bit overwhelmed a little bit, just because I was trying to make sure I was like giving attention in all areas, but obviously kids first, kids responsibilities with kids first, but then make sure I'm giving him enough attention and everything. And at the same time, I knew that there was things that I hadn't healed from that kept kind of popping up, and at the same time feeling like, Amy, you got to get your heart right with God. So like when the relationship ended, I was sad, but like weirdly at the same time, I also felt relieved, if that makes sense, because I just kind of knew, okay, yeah, we were compatible, we had these good things, but that just wasn't my person. It wasn't for me, and that's okay. It was easier. I don't want to say easy, but like I said, I was sad about it, but at the same time, I just kind of had this knowing deep down that it was like, okay, it was what it was, but you got to move on.
Yeah, and that the I so yeah, it's the complete opposite for me, which is I'll tell my story for the people who haven't heard it. Um, I was single for about 3 years after my previous relationship. Was like I used to date bad girls because they were super exciting and they like to party and they like to have fun.
We all had a bad person stage.
Yeah, yeah. So I finally stopped and I said that's where I
Yeah.
came up with the compatibility list. Like I'm sick of getting hurt.
Yeah.
I'm sick of I'm sick of breaking my own heart by dating these girls. So I took a break for like 3 years, and that's when I was really hitting therapy and I was really dealing with my stuff. I was still drinking, but I was alone. I was finding myself at that point in time, and then I got to a point. I ended up getting sober about a year and a half, a year or so, a little over a year sober. I decided that hey, I'm in a great place now. I feel like I'm healed. I'm sober. If you would have bet me, I would have bet that I was 100% ready to date.
Hmm.
But you don't know if you're ready to date until you put yourself back out there. So
Okay.
I connected with this amazing woman, and the emotional and physical connection and the compatibility were there, but it was it was a timing issue for us. She was it was too fresh out of her divorce, and she came to me with the boundary of hey, I'm not ready. I need more time to heal. I need more time to work. I'm not ready for a relationship. And I said okay. Well, I didn't say okay. So what ended up happening is this abandonment issue reared its ugly head in the form of me being clingy, me being like over loving, this feeling of I'm not good enough, this feeling of well, why don't you want me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? When she was clearly telling me like, it's not
Yeah.
you, it's me, you know. But I couldn't accept that because I had this abandonment from my past that I didn't know about. So hindsight, we break up, we don't talk anymore because I started to act in a way that was unbecoming of me, kind of really, like I said, really clingy, really overbearing, and I had to stop myself and say, dude, like this is not you, this is not who you profess to be, this is not who you want to be. Stop talking to her, cut ties. And I talked to you about that when it was going on, and I did that. I ended up getting hurt at work, and so I dedicated myself to 3 days a week going to therapy to try and figure out why the hell I was acting like this. And long story short, it ended up being an abandonment from when I was 13 years old with my dad on a baseball field when he showed up drunk, and it was like, you're not good enough to show up to my baseball game sober or even at all most times, because he was either
Mm.
working or at the bar. That stuck with me my whole life. That agreement that I wasn't good enough became my MO.
Mhm.
When anything would end, when anyone would leave my life, when whether death or relationships would end or friendships would end, I always blame myself for not being good enough. So until I went and healed that, did I kind of relinquish that anxious attachment that I would have in relationships.
Yeah.
Now it's more avoidant secure, but it's amazing how those things from when we're younger, those inner child issues rule our
Mhm.
life and we don't even know it.
But I
So
I didn't know at all for the longest time. It took me till this past year really to realize that, and I talked to you a little bit about it. Some things that I had to like really go back on and be like, okay, now that I think about it and look back on everything, that makes a lot of sense.
right,
Um, but the whole not good enough thing or too much or whatever, and then this is what I always say to people, don't let that become your identity. If you're not good enough for someone, it just means that they weren't the right person for you. It doesn't mean that you're not good enough as a person. And we tend to like internalize those feelings and think that
right.
that's our identity. We're not good enough, and now that's what you tell yourself going into the next relationship, and so on.
Or you're too much.
Or too much, yeah. In my instance, too much. But yeah, it's
But there's
just
something there. That's what I want people to realize, that if you're feeling that way, I did that tagline video that was similar to my last one. Your trigger is your red flag, and it's just to
Mhm.
get you to stop and think, like, if something triggers you negatively and it shuts you down or it overwhelms you, it consumes you, that's your indicator to stop and say,
What's
why
going on?
is this bothering me so much? Why am
Yeah,
I acting like this? Why is this shutting me down and taking me off my path and purpose? Like, that's the self-awareness is key to
mhm.
doing anything in life. It all comes back to you and the conversations and the agreements that you have with yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Figure out where it's coming from.
So yeah, so long story short, with that, she was an amazing woman. I've never felt more connected to anyone in such a short period of time, but the timing was off, and now that's over with, and now I
Hmm.
just feel like, okay, God had me in that situation so I could learn that
Yep.
piece and heal it, and now let's move forward and do our thing.
Yeah, and I think that there's always something that you can learn and take away from every relationship you've been in. And I try to do that because I hate like thinking about things being wasted. So I always talk about like, don't waste your pain, turn it into purpose type of thing. So it's like,
Right.
what did I learn from this? It's almost like that makes me feel better, as if it wasn't all for nothing. If
Right.
I could learn something and use it to like, help me in some way and make things better, then I feel better about the situation not working out.
Yep. Absolutely. And it's just, you know, we constantly are bombarded with these ideals of how to live our lives by TV, by social media, by friends and family. And the truth of the matter is that you are your own unique self. And until you accept that and realize that you are different than everyone in this world,
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to stop and think like, I am okay. I'm okay in my space and time right now. I have my inefficiencies. I have the things I'm good at. I have the things I'm mediocre at. Accepting yourself for who you are in your space and time right now, and then either A, healing your past to your present, and then, thinking about where you want to be in the future and working on your inefficiencies or your purpose or wherever you want to go.
I agree. And it took me a long time to like start, like, well, first of all, it took me a long time to even figure out who I was. Just because I felt like growing up the same as you, kind of similar. I was in survival mode, like growing up constantly, and then having my son at 18 and his dad being an alcoholic, survival mode again. So that's part of the reason why, I married my ex, is because when I met him, he was the first person I felt like safe with. I
Right.
didn't have to be in survival mode. I felt safe with this person. And I'm trailing off. What am I getting
For
at here?
me, for me, it was family. I know what you're saying, but for me, it was family.
Yeah.
Like my ex-wife's family was huge, and they were always together. I never had that, so like that was my like, oh, I want that. I want to be part
Yeah.
of a family. I want to be part of. I want to have that connection because I never had it really.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like, yeah, I totally see where you're coming from with that, though.
Mm. Yep.
Yeah, definitely feel free to ask questions. So compatibility, going back to compatibility, I talk a lot about the compatibility list. Do you know what you're looking for now, or very specifically of what you want, what your deal breakers are, what
Oh, I
you'll.
do. And you're gonna laugh at me. You're gonna think this one is funny, but I was really actually thinking hard on this, and it just hit me one day, and I was like, my perfect person would be a combination of like the number one best quality in every one of my exes. Like if you take the best quality from each of my exes, maybe not all, like four, and combine them into one person, boom, perfect person. But then if you took their worst, it would be like the worst person in the world.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I can never seem to find like all in. I mean, not everybody has all things, but like I can never seem to find, it's always like one thing that mainly initially attracts me to someone. It's always one thing that stands out. And then what ends up happening over time is all of their negative qualities start to overshadow that one thing. But I can never find like all of those things that I'm looking for. Like, with my ex-husband, stability. That was the number one quality: safety, security, stability. Um, and then my other ex, physical attraction, which I know, like, but I've
Yeah.
never in my life been more attracted to somebody ever. So that was like the main thing, which is probably why I put up with a lot of the stuff I shouldn't have put up with, because I was just so crazily attracted to him. And then so and then compatibility with my last relationship. We had a lot of fun, a friendship, compatibility. We laughed together. We could talk about anything. And then my one other ex, it was like we had a really deep connection. We had a deep, passionate connection. Um, and then now what I would add to that is like spiritual leader. So like if you put
Yeah.
all those together in one
Yeah.
person, but then it has to be like for me too, because I have to be attracted to the person. I have to feel that deep connection. But for whatever reason, I've never been able to find that all in someone where I had the attraction, the stability, the connection, the friendship all in one. A lot of times I found like, if I, like, for instance, if I had like the connection with someone and the attraction, they weren't stable in any sense of the word. They were just so unstable, emotionally, mentally, everything unstable.
Yeah.
So it's like I can't find all of that in one person. So I don't know.
You
But
will.
it's
You
something I
definitely
thought
will.
about the other day and was like, it's kind of funny if I took like the number one quality from all of them. There you go. But that's like a unicorn to me now, like a
Yeah.
unicorn.
Yeah. So you have two questions. One of them was, are your triggers still ultra sensitive? Do you
Wait, for
have?
me,
Yeah, that's for you.
are my triggers sensitive? Um, no, not really anymore. Which is why I feel like I'm healing, because I don't really get triggered. Like I used to get so defensive about certain things. And that was my trigger. Like why I would ask myself, why am I getting defensive about this? being defensive is like a red flag. It's like, why?
Yeah.
So I started to realize I'm just like, okay, I'll explain myself about certain things, but like I don't really get defensive about certain things that I used to.
Right. And the other question was, why did you feel like you needed to get your heart right with God?
Um, so I've talked about my faith before, and how I was in a place where I had a really strong faith, and then with my marriage falling apart, I just felt like that faith started to wither as well. And then, also feeling like, oh, this is what I was trailing off about when I said I was in survival mode, never feeling like I was able to figure out who I was. Like I didn't know who I was. And so once I got divorced, I was like gun ho about finding myself. And I've told you this, like all within a year, I like wrote and recorded a song in Nashville. I wrote and published a book. Like it was like I was bursting at the seams to just be me. Like
Right.
I was like that whole year I was on this journey to find myself. And so it's like once I found myself, that was like check mark. I figured out who I was. Now I need to find my soulmate. So then
Yep.
I was on that quest. But in the process of that, I feel like, my faith just got pushed further and further away. And so for whatever reason, this past year, I've just been feeling like, okay, I got to get back to that place. And I can't really explain what that feeling is. It's just, I've had a strong feeling that one, I need to heal some things I haven't healed from, and two, I need to reconnect to my faith again, reconnect to God again. And I know that might be foreign to some people that aren't Christian or don't believe or whatever. So I hope I'm explaining that.
Well, I think
Well.
it's your core value. You're finding your core values, whatever that might be for you. It's your faith, it's your religion, it's your spirituality, it's whatever it is. But it's a core value is what
Yeah.
Look at it like that. Don't um, does your faith give you a sense of who you are? I'm a non-believer, so hearing this stuff is odd. Okay,
Yeah.
so I believe. Let me take this. I believe
Yeah.
that. So in your case, if you're a non-believer and you're going to date someone, they should be spiritually safe for you. And that's just saying spiritual. Whatever deity you believe in, whatever religion, whatever your thing is, you can either choose to find someone who's identical to that or someone who's not going to treat you like an outcast in the relationship because of what you believe in. You could go either route. For me, I'm like Amy, I want someone who believes in the same core values that I do, so I choose to search for that. It doesn't mean it's right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just what we believe. It's our faith. It's not that we're saying you have to do it. If your spirituality is you don't believe in spirituality, so
Mm.
be it. Find someone who's compatible with you in that department. Um, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just it simply comes down to faith for us and everybody else who believes in something different.
Well, and we're similar in that aspect as well, where like religion sometimes I have a hard time with, because I do know that sometimes religion can be toxic. So for me, it's more about a personal relationship with God, like a
Yep.
personal walk with God.
Yep.
And you've said the same thing before too. So we kind of
Yep.
similar
Yep.
in that sense.
Yeah. It's I don't talk about. I do my morning affirmations for me and whoever wants to listen to it. I had a lady in the comment of today's affirmation tell me, "Oh, I was falling in love with you. I love your content, but now you're being all Bible-y." And I'm like, okay, then don't listen. It's not for you. I'm,
Bible-y.
she called it Bible-y. And I said, hey,
You're
look,
so Bible-y, Brian.
my content's all inclusive. Come one, come all. Whatever your ethnicity is, whatever your religious
Yeah.
beliefs are, my content is just that one that I do every morning. If it's not for you, then scroll past it. We don't need to argue about it. I'm not going to push it, on you. I'm not going to tell you you're right, wrong, or indifferent for not believing or believing. I don't. It's
Yeah.
my personal belief. It's my personal spiritual walk. I'm not trying to demean or degrade anyone or lift anyone else up. It's just me.
I'm
Me.
the same way. I am not one to push my beliefs on anyone. Like I will share my stories, I will share what I think, what I feel, and what I believe, but I will not push that on anyone. So, it's okay. Like I feel like it's okay. if I believe and you believe, if you don't, it's okay.
Yeah.
You know,
So
I
someone
don't.
asked what my core beliefs are. I have now 6 deal breakers, I call them, but they're core beliefs. I won't get into all of them because I don't believe that you should share those with people, because I think that people will
They'll
take
change
those
themselves.
that will
Yeah.
mirror you just to get close to you and manipulate you. So when you build this compatibility list, don't share this with anyone
I
until
already
you're
shared mine.
don't do that. No, you shared a couple of things, but
I
yours
shared
were
a few.
kind of yours weren't detailed to where
Stability.
they
Those are just like, yeah.
yeah. But like so for me it's faith. So well I'll tell you 3 of the 6. Faith, conversation, and physical touch love language. So
Conversation.
they need to be able to I cannot live. I cannot be in. I can't get off the single seat and go to the love seat without someone knowing what the physical touch love language means, what it's about. I also need deep conversation because I love to talk. If you haven't noticed, so deep conversation is very important to me. And then my
Same.
faith, and I have 3 others that I won't go into, but that's what. And then I have my I don't even know what I would call them, just my wants. Like I love to hike. I would love to have a hiking partner, but I'm okay going to do that by myself. I don't need a partner to do that with me, even though I would like
Same.
it. I like going to the gym. I would love a partner that would go to the gym with me, but I'm willing to do that alone. I like to go out to eat at new restaurants. It's just those are just wants. They're not deal breakers.
Well, and I think it's safe to say that interests, personal interests, aren't as big of a deal as like the bigger core values,
Right.
like
Right.
because
Correct.
I mean, men and women typically have a lot of different interests anyway. So
Yeah.
that's not as big. You shouldn't say it's a deal breaker that, like you said, like that you don't like hiking. That shouldn't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
pretty
I've made a
absurd.
video. I made a video before about like the difference between being picky and, you know, like knowing what you want and don't want, but like not being too picky.
Um,
I forgot.
let's go and I want to talk about something off topic. What are your thoughts on the masculine feminine dynamic?
Like in a relationship or
Or just
as
for
a
yourself
single
too?
person.
Like as far as energies go.
I think everyone has masculine and feminine energies, but not everyone utilizes both sides. A lot of people stay completely in the masculine or completely in the feminine. I don't think that's healthy. I think everyone should try to find like a healthy balance between the two. Um so yeah, I mean I would say like I'm more in my feminine right now even though I'm like single. I don't know. And I think with like the feminine energy, when I think about that, it's like more being in a place of being and receiving instead of like moving and doing. And so for me, like over the past few months, I've been more in a place of like just being. And like that's required me to like let go of some things. I'm working on healing and letting go and opening myself up so I can allow that energy to flow because I also feel like feminine energy is flowing, and
Yep. Yep.
I think a lot of people block that if they have like past hurts. They can close themselves up. They can put up the wall. They can turn cold and bitter and, you know, be in that energy, which I think nowadays it's okay to have like your guard up a little bit. You kind of have to nowadays.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's okay to be like cautiously optimistic, but don't be so, shut down or closed off that you're like blocking things from receiving things that are meant to come to you. You know what I mean? Does
Yeah.
that make sense? I
Yeah.
don't
Oh,
know if I'm explaining
absolutely.
that right.
Absolutely. Yeah, because you have the wounded feminine, the wounded masculine, and then you have the grounded masculine, the grounded feminine, which are 2 totally different. But I'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, I had all sorts of people coming at me in the comments: extreme femmes, transgender people, same sex relationship people. Just they were all coming at me, and what I realized is like none of them know what it's about at its
It
core.
can be,
The,
it is a little bit of a confusing topic.
it has,
They
but yeah, that's the thing. And I'm like, it has nothing to do with gender,
gender,
gender
yeah,
roles, sexual
yeah.
orientation. It's none of that.
I
It's
will also say that I don't think that it like a lot of people think being independent is masculine. And I don't
nothing to
think
do.
independence has anything to do with masculine or feminine because I'm independent, but I'm also very feminine. And I
Yeah,
know a lot of other women who are independent and feminine as well. And especially if you're a single mom, you have to be independent. Like you're automatically independent.
yep.
um but that, so just because someone is independent doesn't mean that they're masculine.
And I posed this question to you the other day, and I'll pose it to the panel here.
Yeah.
If you are claiming that you're an independent woman or an independent man, but you're living in an energy that you don't want to be in, are you actually independent? Or are you just surviving? It's something to think about. I mean, you're technically
You're
independent, but you're
technically independent, I think, regardless. But I think if you're solely living in that masculine energy, which is uncomfortable, that feels like you're living in survival mode. That is
yeah,
what it is.
yeah.
You're not, you gotta like, I mean, that is what being in a masculine energy is. And I think like when you try to move into a feminine energy, like I said, it's going to require like letting go, and a lot of that is letting go of control, the constant need to try to control everything all the time, and just letting, like, being in the present and letting yourself feel what you're feeling at that time and being what it is, um in
So
that moment.
what is feminine energy? What is that to you? Like a healthy
um
feminine. What does a healthy feminine, grounded
I
feminine
mean,
feel like to you?
like I just feel good in within myself and in my space. And it's oddly, weirdly, since the past few months I've been more in this feminine energy, it's actually transferred over into the physical realm because I've started like working on redecorating my house in like all neutral colors, and I want it to be like calm and peaceful and like, all of that. But that at the same time, I just went and bought a leaf blower, which I've never used in my life because that's the independent side of me. I'm a single mom. I have to do these things. um
Well,
but like, but yeah, just being in an energy that is more open and flowing. So like, even though, for instance, even though I'm not dating and I'm not looking and I'm not trying, I don't want to be negative or have any past hurts or bitterness or anything that's going to block from someone coming to me. Like if someone did come to me and I saw that they were, a person that was worthy of like talking to, I want to be open to that.
yep.
And I don't want to block that by being in this space where I don't need anyone. Like, I don't want to have that mental space where I'm blocking things from coming to me, you know,
So you're more, let's say, you're more radiant, you're more loving, you're more nurturing, you're more
warm. Yeah.
understanding, warm,
Yeah.
and yeah,
And I'm all of those things in a relationship. Like, I love my independent side and, my goal oriented dreamer side and all of that, but I am very nurturing, warm, loving and all of that in a relationship. But like, I've learned to be that on my own now too. Like, just feeling good in who I am and in my space. And I don't know, it's just
I
like
want
I've
to
just been
add.
doing little things here and there that make me feel good and feminine, and I don't know.
And when you do have to, so let's just, so it's fair to say that you feel more comfortable resting in your feminine energy, whatever that percentage is. We're not going
Oh
to
yeah.
try and figure that out, but you can go to your masculine energy when you need to, when you need to be
Yeah.
decisive, when you need structure, when
Yep.
you need, you know, when you need a clear purpose, or you need to be aware. Like, that's healthy masculine energy in a woman, or in a feminine woman,
Yes,
who feels
exactly.
more comfortable. Unhealthy masculine energy in a woman who wants to be feminine would look like manipulating, controlling, demanding, just like aggressive, like
Defensive, hold,
defensive,
shut down.
standoffish,
Yeah.
cold. Yeah, that's the single mom who's getting beat down. The world's destroying her. Her ex is beating her into the ground. Like, she's in defense mode. She's
Yeah.
holding. She's got her walls up and she's holding everybody back. So
Yeah. And like that's understandable if you've been hurt before and you
Mhm.
feel like, you know, it's caused you to shut down, it's caused you to put walls up, it's caused you to go into that mode. But and that's when you got to work on like healing and letting things go. And I always say, like, I like the fact that I know I can do it all. I think that's
Yeah,
great. Like, you can
yeah,
do it all. But just because you can, like, just because I can doesn't mean that I always want to
right.
or that I should. And you shouldn't when you're in a relationship. That is what having a partner is for. So if someone comes along and wants to step up and, be a partner, I want to let them. I'm going to
Yep,
let them, you
yep.
know?
And
Um, oh, go
that's
ahead.
the difference between codependency, hyper independency, right? In the middle is interdependency. That's
Yeah,
what you just explained is interdependency. I can take care of
that's
it
where I'm at.
all myself. But I
Yep.
want to be I want to have someone in my life who's going to add to my life, who I can, do life with, who I
Add
can
value. Yep.
add value to my life. That's interdependency, and that's the only dependency that is part of the masculine feminine dynamic, because you
Yes.
could be independent in your masculine or your feminine. You could be wounded or you could be healed. It's just what you choose. It's all independent if you're by yourself. When you come together is where the
Yeah.
interdependence comes in. And in a man could be in his wounded feminine too. And what that looks like is codependency. It could be like, feeling unworthy, like I wasn't good enough, um, that kind of energy, like weak boundaries, those kind of things. Like that's like a wounded type of feminine energy that a man could possess too. So,
Yep.
you know, like when I like to think that I'm going to put it into a percentage for me, but I like to think that I'm 80% masculine and I have like this 20% of
Hmm.
feminine energy that I can access at any point in time when I need to,
Know when to use it. Yeah.
for my people, for my tribe, for my women, for my dog, you know what I mean, for the people of my close knit tribe. I don't need to go be vulnerable and feminine with the whole world, but I do need to provide a place and a space for them to come to, and I can be vulnerable with them.
Yeah, and that's how I am. And like, I actually prefer the man to take the lead in our relationship. As long as I feel safe, as long as I know that I'm like right there next to that person and,
Right.
my thoughts and feelings are being heard, I feel respected and appreciated. Um, but, if there was ever a situation where that person or any person, even though I kind of like step back and let the person take the lead, if there was ever a situation where they weren't, I would know when to step up and take the lead, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like
Yep.
even like being an introvert with a group of people, I'm more of the one that's kind of like in the background, kind of quiet. But if I was with a group of people that was the same, I would immediately be the leader in that group. Like,
Right.
because I know how to switch into that, like when I need to.
Yeah. And it's no different. Like if your partner's down and out, if they're sick, you need to step up and take care of
Step
shit.
up. Yeah.
It's just how it works. Like, you got to be there. And that, but it's being there in a healthy, healed, grounded place. It's not coming from a negative connotation. But I want to
A
talk about
trauma
Becky.
response. Yeah.
It's so yeah, the masculine feminine dynamic is just energy, but you can label it however you want. I had a lot of non-binary people in my comments coming at me for using the term masculine and feminine. If you want to change it to whatever words you want to change it to, it's for human beings to help wrap their head around the differences between the two. You could say this is them energy and this is their energy. I don't care what you call it, but I'm going to call it
Yeah.
masculine and feminine.
It's,
It's just how I
yeah.
understand it. That's how I was taught it. That's how I learned it. Just whatever. Call it whatever you want, but it's all it
Yeah.
is energy. And it's in the dynamic of a relationship, it's the balance and the polarity of the two different energies. So if you are a masculine woman and you have a masculine man, you might bump heads a lot. You
Yeah.
might argue a lot, in
It'd
left
be
and
like a competition all the
yeah,
time.
it'd be contentious, right? It could be
Mm.
if you have two feminine people, it could be pretty weak and very uneventful and very unexciting. But it's the polarity and the balance and however that looks in unique relationship that you have with yourself and the unique relationship that you have with your partner, because nobody can, there's no right or wrong here. You cannot be right in explaining the masculine feminine dynamic because it's unique to you, it's unique to me, it's unique to each everybody in
Yeah,
this world.
I agree with that. And I think you could you could switch into whatever energy more or less based on who you're with, like who
Yeah,
your partner.
yeah, for sure.
Um,
So
but and that's the other thing I wanted to bring up, like partner, um, because I feel like the relationships where they're more partnerships are the ones that work out like the best, where it's like both people helping each other and both people stepping up. Um, like to me, when I think of a relationship, automatically the word partnership comes up, and that's just how I think. That's how it should be. But
so I was talking roles, but you have to understand in a in a heterosexual relationship that is what's the word I want to use? Where the man and the man, the gender roles in, I can't think of the word I'm trying to use. Uh, but it's different. And so I actually had a conversation with this lesbian woman in the comments, and she had shared the video, and she was telling me that they call masculine women in lesbian relationships mask wives. That's what they call them because they're
and
masculine.
don't isn't there like femme? They say femme.
Femme
That's
wives and mask wives. That's what they
yeah.
refer to each other as. So, in a heterosexual and a homosexual and a transsexual relationship, it, it's whoever wants to assume what role. It's wherever each person feels more comfortable resting is all it is. I'm not. You know, I can't. I really am. Why I can't think of the word I'm trying. Traditional. A heterosexual traditional relationship might look like the man is the masculine and the woman is the feminine.
Woman's a feminine.
It doesn't make it right or wrong. It it just is what
Whatever
that
works for that couple.
whatever works for them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because I mean, there's a lot of relationships that are that aspect, and both people love it that way. And then you get, in my situation where I felt like, it didn't work for us. So
Right.
I
And
needed more of a partnership.
1950s D's role. Yeah, but that's so if I chose to have a traditional relationship with a woman and she chose to have a traditional relationship with me, that's our own business. It has nobody else's,
Yeah.
issue to talk about. This isn't an all inclusive. I mean, the masculine feminine dynamic is all inclusive in the fact that there's infinite amount of combinations of the two in the confines of your unique relationship. I can't tell you how to be in a relationship. I can't tell any same sex marriage how to be in a relationship. I wouldn't even try. I wouldn't even try to
Yeah.
have that conversation. You do you, you be you, and I'm just trying to
What works
teach.
for you?
Yeah, just trying to teach the differences in energies so they can figure it out. Oh yeah, no, Becky, I'm totally on board with you. We could talk about it more in the comments. You and I talk a lot, so if you have any more questions, we could talk about it if it's confusing. But I'm trying to make it as simple as possible in the fact that it's just energy and how you use it.
Mm-hmm.
See if we have any other questions. Uh, so you want to talk about the boring phase in so is it boring or is it complacent or
But
both?
I feel like, I guess in my opinion, I feel like every relationship is going to have some boring phases. I mean, if you're living life with someone for the rest of your life, you're going to have ups and downs in emotions, ups and downs in your living situation in life, and you're going to hit some boring phases. But like in my situation, I knew the difference between this is a boring phase and I feel completely alone in my situation. There was a difference and I knew it. So a lot of times that's part of the reason why I felt misunderstood when I would try to explain how I felt to other people, because they look at it as like well, every relationship has boring phases and this and that. I'm like, you're not listening to me. I feel alone. It's not about boring. I feel alone. Like, so
Yeah, it and so Tiffany had asked. I said, "Is it boring or is it complacency? Are you in a complacent place in your relationship?" Which that might look like, oh, you come home every day from work, you have dinner, you sit down on a couch, and you repeat, you eat, sleep, repeat that for however long, and it just becomes your norm. You stop dating, you stop the flirtiness, you stop doing the things at the beginning of the relationship that you really fell in love with. Those things start petering off, and it really is important to identify when those things are happening so you can stop it, or you know give some more attention to those parts.
yeah.
But that's where, so when I talk with men specifically, because I really have a hard time talking from a woman's perspective, because I know if I do, I'm just going to get lambasted. um, but again, those 5 pillars I hold true with both genders, is that if you're checking in with yourself weekly, hey, am I making my wife feel emotionally safe, physically safe, mentally safe, spiritually safe, and financially safe? How am I doing in all of those areas? You can start to quantify, like, hey, you know, I'm not doing really good in uh, the emotional part right now. I should probably step it up. And you can consciously do that. You can consciously say, hey, okay, babe, we're going to go on a date, a random date, just me and you. We're going to go to the park, or we're going to go get ice cream, and we're going to, do that. That emotional connection is what I teach men that they need to focus on. Or our
Mhm.
the mental realm. Are our fights getting out of hand? Am I devaluing her? Um, am I not accepting what she's telling me? Am I just blowing her off? Like, how am I treating her in her mental state? Physical, that could be whatever. Am I keeping myself healthy for her? Am I doing something that's gonna, you know affect the longevity of my life, or hurt me, or whatever? And then, spiritually, am I using spirituality to gain from her? Am I manipulating her? Am I connecting with her spiritually? Are we, whatever we believe in, are we talking about that? Are we
Mhm.
connecting on that level? And then same thing with the finances, which I talked about earlier. you know am I being reckless? Am I being responsible, irresponsible? So just checking
Mhm.
in with yourself on a weekly basis in those 5 areas could negate a whole bunch of problems in your relationship.
Yeah, because the less you check in, the more like you retreat within, and yeah.
Yes. So, one sec. But what were we talking about? My brain's getting tired.
I know mine too.
Complacency.
Yeah.
9 o'clock. If we can make it till 9 o'clock, this will be great. Um, so yeah, just checking in. You have to understand that, people always talk about, well, this is my one, or I want to find the one, I want to find my person, right? So in the confines of the relationship, if you're not doing the work, if you're not putting in the effort, they're not going to be your one for long. They're going to fall away, they're going to break up, and then you're going to be on to two, three, or four. So any relationship, really, you have to want to be there, and you have to want to do the work.
Mhm. Yeah, I saw this quote once that said, everything that is left alone long enough eventually disappears. And I was like, wow, that could like relate to everything. But
Yeah.
I just thought of what I was trying to think of between boring and feeling alone. And I made a video on this before, how to know the difference. And I feel like when it's boring in a relationship, that's like a lack of attention.
Hmm.
But when you feel alone in a relationship, that's a lack of connection. And
Yes.
I knew we
Yes.
we didn't have the connection, so I was feeling alone. It wasn't about boring. It wasn't about getting enough attention or any of that. So that's the difference there. I just wanted to clarify
That's
that.
a great. And what was that? Say that again.
When it's boring in a relationship, that's a lack of attention. But when you feel alone in a relationship, that's a lack of connection.
Yes, lack of connection, alone.
Yeah.
I like that. That's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because I really actually I started questioning myself when I would try to explain myself to people, and I felt so misunderstood. And I'm just like, I know this. Like, they just kept saying every relationship gets boring, and I'm like, I know. But it's like I couldn't articulate like what I felt or what I meant, and then it just hit me one day. I'm like, that's not what it is. I'm missing the connection. That's what it is.
Yeah, and connection's so important. And so the
Yeah.
emotional and the physical connection in the relationship. What do you think about withholding? I I experienced that in a relationship where the physical intimacy was withheld
Like
until
purposely, or it just kind of
purposely
faded out?
purposely until I did what I
Oh, I've never done that. I feel like that's manipulation. You shouldn't do that. That's manipulation.
yeah
I mean, there's been times where I'm like, oh, I'm not in the mood, but whatever, like just
yeah
whatever.
right right
Um, or there's been times where like that had been missing, but it's just because we just were so separate. It wasn't like on purpose. Like if you don't give me attention, I'm not going to give you this. I've never done that.
yeah I think that's really where given both parties, both people are doing the work in the relationship, I believe the physical intimate part, i.e. sex or intimacy, is where you really connect, is where you really connect on an emotional level, on a
Yeah.
physical level, like that part of like intimacy is for connection. That's how I differentiate like the physical touch, physical
Mm-hmm.
touch and that like if you're knocking it out, not knocking it out of the park, but if you're hitting on all cylinders and all the other parts of the relationship, the intimate part is just gonna be there. It just is.
Yeah,
There's no
I
resentment.
agree.
There's no
Yeah.
guilt. There's no animosity. It's just gonna be there.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Tammy. So Tammy's in here. I don't know if you followed Tammy, manicured mom.
I I think so. It sounds
She
familiar.
she just got. Oh, it's horrible. So her content is really around like supporting men's rights, like helping men understand, like,
Yeah.
and she got blackballed by a bunch of extreme feminist women, and they got two of her accounts
Oh
banned
my
at
gosh.
163,000 banned.
Oh
Just
wow.
wouldn't even.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry about that.
that's horrible,
Mm-hmm.
horrible. Because you have great content, and I love the way you put it. Is that you're fighting for your future son's marriage? Is what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
because she has a younger son, and she puts a lot of the father's rights content out from a perspective that a lot of women don't want to hear, and they
Yeah.
and they took it personal and got her mass reported and banned.
Oh wow.
Crazy.
Yeah. That's
But because is there anything that you could have done different in your relationships to save them, or is there even anything you would have wanted to do different?
if I did anything different, I wouldn't have been with any of them. No, I'm serious. If I
I
would have
know.
gone back and knew then what I know now, I wouldn't even have gone down half of the roads that I went down.
Yeah.
Because I think the biggest thing is I didn't know myself. I didn't, and that, I mean, you have to take the time to figure out who you are and know yourself so that you know exactly what you want and you need and all of that. Because you kind of like learn that in your relationships. So it kind of takes a few relationships to really kind of figure those things out. So I don't know.
That's
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, with like my marriage, there's things that I realized, other aspects that played a part in how I was feeling aside from my ex. So, like, I mean, like I said, unhealed trauma being one of them. So, if I could have gone back, I would have, worked on that. And he needed to too. But I brought up therapy to him as well because I couldn't understand how he was so closed off emotionally. And I'm like, there's got to be, maybe you should talk to something. There's got to be a reason why you're like this. And he's like, I don't
Yeah.
need therapy. I don't need therapy. Um, but like you said, it was the same situation where he grew up with nobody said I love you, nobody hugged, nobody touched, nobody. It was just it was
Yeah.
very different. Like you could tell the difference between family Thanksgiving at my house and family Thanksgiving at his house, just completely different. And it was almost uncomfortable for me because I'm just like, man, everybody's like robots over here. Like
Right.
you get over to my family, we're like hi and hug and I love you, and it's just like so different. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I know what Laura was saying. You don't not, but I here's what I believe. Everybody doesn't have to go down the rabbit hole. Everybody doesn't have to destroy their lives to learn. To add to what we were just talking about, if I could go back, or if I talk to men who are in similar situations that I was, I tell them like, dude, stop what you're doing right now and go get help. Because if you want to save your marriage and you don't know how to save your marriage, therapy will help you figure it out. But you have to do something. You just sitting around and doing nothing and waiting for the inevitable to happen, it will happen. You have to take
Yeah.
action. You have to do the work. You have to be willing to. And if you really do love your wife or your husband and you really do want to make it work, you have to do the work. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to go through everything that me and Amy went through to learn everything that we learned. Because if
Please
I would
don't.
have,
Please
you know,
don't.
if I would have went to therapy 7 years ago or marriage counseling and figured it out, we would probably most likely still be married today. I would have been on a completely different path in life. I wouldn't, who knows what the plan would have been. But for me, I believe God's plan was for me to go through all that turmoil so I can help other people not go through that turmoil.
Same.
So, but I would have
Just
definitely still
we're
been
just
married.
taking ones for the team.
Yeah.
We're just out there doing God's work.
Here's your vessel,
Like
buddy. Do what you need to do
I'm
with
like,
it.
I am so tired of the lessons, God. I'm ready for my blessings now. I'm just done. I've had it. I'm done with lessons.
Yeah. So, but no, I think
But
I
no,
could have.
you're
We could have saved our marriage, but I wouldn't have learned a lot of the things. But we could have saved our marriage if I wasn't so stubborn, if I wasn't so selfish. We could have fixed it for sure.
yeah, and I think there was a part of me at one point when I started getting into the resentful stage because
Mm.
when I look back, I can see so clearly the different phases I went through. Where it's like I gave it my all, I tried everything, and then I started to be like, why is nothing changing? Why do I feel the same? He hasn't changed. And then I started to feel alone. And then that turned into resentment. And then the resentment turned into shutting down and like becoming numb. And like, if I could go back, now that I look back on it during like a certain phase where I was resentful and I was just so hurt and like felt alone, I would constantly repeat things like, I feel alone, I feel unloved. Why aren't you like this? Why don't you do this? Why aren't we like this? Why? And so like he's constantly hearing, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough.
I'm not
Why
good
am I
enough.
not
Yes.
this? I'm not that. I'm not that. I'm not that.
Yes.
So that is one thing now that I think about. If I could go back, I did do that for a period of time. And that
Right.
probably caused him to shut down even more
Yes.
because I was just constantly, I didn't understand. I felt hurt, and that's how it was coming out. I just started being resentful, and I was like sinking and dwelling into those feelings where I was repeating those things in my head every day, and then I was repeating them to him.
Yep. And you have to understand that as men and women, we're completely different animals. Like men aren't going to read your signs. They're not going to feel your vibe. They're not. Most men aren't. Some will,
Yeah,
but most aren't. So that's why I say when you come to him with problems, bring it packaged as
absolutely.
safety and love and caring and with, because like when you're saying, why aren't you like this? Why aren't you like this? All he's thinking
Why
is,
do
I'm not
this?
good. I'm not good. I'm not good.
Yeah.
Instead of maybe if you came to him with answers like, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I need you to do, and then let him choose to do it or not.
Yeah. So like instead of saying like, why don't you show me affection, instead say, it makes me feel a lot more connected to you when you're a little more affectionate, when you give
Yes.
hugs, things like that. So
Correct.
that's and I think I started off like that though. And then I started feeling ignored. So then it switched to like, why?
Well, I mean, then that's your answer. It's
Yeah.
actionable change behavior. is, and
Yeah.
that's that. And I'm sure you reiterated to him, like my ex-wife reiterated to me, like, something needs to change,
Yeah.
something's going to change, or
Or this is
or
gonna happen, or I'm done. I
you know
Yeah, towards the end there, I was saying that for a while, and then he would just completely ignore it. And I'm like, did you not hear me? I said, like, I can't live like this anymore. Like, are you, like, take me seriously? Like,
yeah,
and I
but
think he was the same way, where he didn't think I would ever leave. I mean, I was a
yeah,
stay-at-home mom. He
yeah,
probably thought, she's not going anywhere. She's a stay-at-home mom. She's got nothing. Like,
exactly,
you know,
exactly. That's
yeah,
and my ex-wife was a stay-at-home mom for 8 years. She went back to work and started making her own money, and then like 3 years later, like, of begging me, literally begging me to change, or to figure it out, finally left. Was secure enough to to go on her own. And so, to answer Tiffany's question, yes, her and I have had that conversation in the past, years ago, that yeah, if I would have chosen to go to therapy 7 years ago, 8 years ago, and did the work, that our relationship probably would have still we probably still would have been together. But it's the rabbit hole that everything goes down once everybody stops caring, and the hurt and the resentment and the nastiness that we do to each other at that point, that's where you can't recover from. I like her and I both agree there's no way that we could ever get back together, because there's just too much hurt between the two of us. We hated each other for 2.5 years. We didn't even communicate other than about the kids. Literally despised each other. But it gets exhausting, very exhausting. And we called a truce one day. We're just like, oh my God, this is enough. Like, gee, Christmas, like, let's just stop. Because it was affecting the
yeah.
kids 100%. The kids were miserable. They were depressed. They were anxious because we were always fighting. I wouldn't even go in our house. I would park out in front and wait for the kids to come out. Like, I
Oh
wouldn't
my God.
even. Oh, it was so petty and so juvenile, so immature. But yeah, we finally called the truce. And we're just like, hey, you know what? We need to do better for the kids.
That's good. I mean, there's times that I wonder if he had gotten therapy and learned how to, like, open up and connect, if that would have, I mean, I wonder, like,
But that's
but
that's the other thing too. Like, those types of traumas, that type of healing takes years. So you
it does.
you need to
Yeah.
be in for the long haul. Like, this is no quick fix. This is not something that's going to change overnight. Like, if you both agree that, okay, we're going to work on it, we both want to work on it, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be
Hmm.
draining and emotionally destructive. And there's times when I came out of therapy, when I was healing myself, where I would come home at noon. Therapy was always at 11 on Thursdays. I'd come home at noon, just completely exhausted, drained,
Exhausted.
and I would lay on the couch for the rest of the day, and just I was done. That was it.
Yeah. It is. It takes a lot out of you.
So we got like 20 minutes. You guys have questions? Let's answer them for you. Um, Amy, did you find? Let's see. Did you find you did things out of character, or found your triggers through dealing with that?
Yes. 100%. Yeah, both. I did things out of character. I turned into a different person, and I also found my triggers. So, yeah.
uh, where we at? My ex-husband and I have connected more now than we ever did before. Yeah, yeah, that's how I feel too. Like, we can have real conversations now, because I've not only been in therapy for 6 years, she's also been in therapy for 6 years. So
That's
she's
good.
she was a very reactive person. Now she's very understanding. She understands boundaries. She understands her triggers. She understands where she feels safe. So we can have, like, if I act a fool, she won't even respond to me, and I'm just like, oh yeah, that's because you
Well, that's good that you
know.
both have, like, done that though and grown.
Yeah, it really helps with the kids. 20,000 likes. Look at that. We did great tonight.
Wow.
So, Cassie, I just saw your video about the women being in their masculine because they can't be in their feminine. Truth. It's truth in that dynamic. There's multiple variations and combinations of relationships, but in that specific dynamic, I was speaking from past experience where I was emotionally unavailable for my ex-wife. I was kind of talking to my past self in the mirror, and then I panned over to the camera and I was talking to whoever would relate to it. And it seemed like a lot of women related to it. But you know what I found funny is a lot of men in the comments were like, what about being independent? What about being, taking care of herself? Why should I be her emotional safe place? Why should I? And I'm like, dude, you got to be kidding me. This is where we're at in society. Like, you
Yeah.
don't, like, as a man, you don't feel like you should. And this is really what I'm going to start teaching is like in my content is like, as the man, as the woman, you should be content in your own time and space. You should provide a safe place. If you're not going to do it for your wife or girlfriend, do it for your kids, do it for yourself, do it for
Mm-hmm.
future relationships. Like this blaming and this constant like it. And I really want to do more content directed really at men. Like, hey, you're acting like a flippin' child. You're acting like
Women's an idiot.
oh, it's just ridiculous. But yeah, so
Well,
that's
and yeah, I mean, we have similar comment or content about a lot of similar things, but obviously, me being a woman, I have more that relates to women, but I've never, like, you know me, I'm not like a man hater or
yeah.
anything. I try to, like, I usually try to see both sides to
Mhm.
things. But obviously, being a woman, there's just going to be a lot more that's women can relate to. Um, but I will try to see both sides, and because I do want to help, like in all aspects. But
I think you and I
yeah,
are on the same path of like trying to bridge the gap between men and women because there's such a disconnect now. It's so
it's like the two magnets that I was telling you, like in my marriage. It's just like, why can't we get there?
that's
But
the
yeah, I
truth.
mean, and I've kind of gotten used to, you know, actually the men have gotten a lot better on my account over the past year. I used to get some really bad hate comments from men, and it's really gotten better. So every once in a while I'll have like a hate comment pop up and I'm just like, like to me, I feel like if a man is, or anyone, man, woman, gonna get so like saying, well, all men are the same, all women are the same, and you're just gonna do this, and you're gonna leave your boyfriend and go to the next thing, like that type of stuff. To me, that's like you're bitter over something, and you're
Yeah.
taking it out on a complete stranger that you know nothing about. Like,
Yeah, it's true. And the other thing that you have to realize too, this is a very small percentage of society. The only thing that you're hearing is what people are putting out there to hear. The vast
yeah,
majority of relationships are okay. They're figuring it out. They're working it out. They're not hating each other. They're not, we're only seeing a very small percentage on these social medias on, people with their loud microphones screaming from the rooftops. Like not all people are like this. So and you
no,
have to be very cognizant of not comparing yourself to everyone or
yeah,
generalizing that all men or women are a certain way because they're not.
yeah. And I mean, I try to be a pretty, like I said, see both sides and level headed about things. So that it just like irks me if I make a video like that I feel like was pretty even keel, and then I have like a hate comment about like now it's a gender war, and I'm just like, I don't understand, because I'm not like being like, I'm kind of in
they're,
the middle here.
yeah,
I
they're
don't
just
understand.
miserable. Misery loves
Yeah,
company. Like if you're not willing to accept who you are and you just want to live in misery, then you're going to find
yeah,
a bunch of people to surround yourself that are just as miserable, and you guys are going to have something in common, and it's going to be your misery. But that's your
yeah.
choice.
But what's funny is it doesn't like it just doesn't bother me as much anymore. I think I
Because it
had some.
used to. It used to a
No,
lot.
remember me telling you I almost deleted my TikTok because it was affecting me so bad. All these like troll hate comments, and I'm just like, I mean, it put me into kind of a depression for like a week there, and I was like, I got to get off of here. Like, I'm going to
Yes.
delete my whole TikTok. But now like I literally just had a guy comment on my video today saying, "Good luck good luck being a single mom in her 30s. You're going to die alone. And I was like, that doesn't sound so bad right now. I'm actually, I was like, honestly, I'm actually pretty happy as a single mom in my 30s. So, I mean, I'm happier now as a single mom in my 30s in this place in my life
Yeah.
than I was in my marriage. So it doesn't really offend me. I'm just like,
Yeah. And
okay.
that's the piece that you and I talk about.
Yeah,
This
I'm
is
just kind
the
of
inner
like
peace. This is
unbothered right now.
yeah,
I'm
it's just
unbothered.
nothing bothers you. You're content with where you're at, your space and time. You know that you
Yeah,
can take care of yourself. You're healed from all your past traumas. Or for the most part, you're just content, and it's so
yeah,
beautiful, isn't it? It's so
it
calming.
is. Yeah.
Uh, some people are so ignorant and miserable they don't pay attention.
Yeah, sometimes I just laugh even now when I see the hate comments. I kind of laugh to myself and I'm like that I've come a long way because I used to get really upset and now I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, yeah, and that's so. I want to talk to Laura about the bridging the gap. I do believe that, and I talk about this a lot. I do believe that the first two feminist movements needed to happen. The one in the early 1900s, the one in the 60s and 70s. I'm sorry, the first three, and then one in the what was it, the 90s. I believe it pushed a little too far and started to devalue and emasculate men, and really pushed the narrative that women didn't need men for anything, which kind of drove that separation between the two. And now we're starting to see. I mean, if you go through those, thousands of comments in that video, there's so many women on that video saying, "Yes, I'm independent, but it sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I
Yeah.
want a partner. I want a lover. I want all this stuff."
Mhm.
Like, you're really starting to see that. Yes, women are understanding that I can do it all myself, but I don't want to be
But I
out
don't
in
want
this.
to all the
I
time.
don't want to do it all the time, So now,
Well,
like
that's
from
oh sorry.
so now from like my content, I'm trying to help men understand how to understand women now. It's not that complicated. It's just about, it's not even solely about providing, financially or physically anymore. Yes, you still need to provide that safe space, but it's about mental, it's about emotional, it's about spiritual. Those are the missing components. You figure out those components and you can start finding good women again. And I believe what we'll see is over the next couple of decades, we'll start seeing the divorce rates drop because people are not going to get married at all anymore. They're going to be that red pill, no, absolutely not. Or
Yeah.
you're going to see relationships really start, you know, um,
Become more
growing.
partnership.
Yes, you're going to see
Like
really good
even
relationships.
equal give and take and stuff.
Yes.
I mean, I hope that that's what will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say something and I completely. Oh yeah. I mean, like I hear the saying and the phrase all the time, resting in your feminine. And that is exactly what it feels like for me, resting.
Resting.
Yes, please can I rest because I'm exhausted. Like I would love to rest in my feminine more. I mean, and that's the place where I'm at in my life right now. And like I said before, when my relationship ended, even though a part of me was sad, another part of me felt relieved because I was like, okay, like I don't have to constantly be giving my attention to like 500 different things. Like I need to rest.
Right. and
So,
and I think that's a resting place for a masculine too. Is I'm like, for me, I know that I can handle business when I have to. I know that I can protect my people, but I don't have to be on guard all the time. I don't have to
yeah.
be like tense and anxious and angry and just constantly thinking about violence. Like, that's the beauty of the masculine man. Is I'm not playing a grounded masculine man. I'm not playing into the hierarchies or the patriarchies. I'm not following. I will take information in and I will decide if it's good for me or not, or if I should change the direction or a little bit of my life. But I am me in my time and space, in my direction. I know where I'm headed. I know where my family is. I know that they're taken care of, that they're safe. I don't care what's going on in Ukraine or Russia or with the United States government. I care what's happening right around me right now. Those are the things that I can take care of. If someone comes to my tries to break in my house, I can defend that. I can take care of that.
Mhm.
But I don't need to be on edge all the time.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I mean, it's just as important for women to create a safe space for men as well, to let their guard down.
Mm.
Um,
We didn't talk about that. That's a good.
I mean, honestly, that was one of the things when I started dating again after my divorce. I had the main thing I noticed within the connections I made after my divorce is how quite a few men said, I I love the fact that I can just be myself with you and like let my guard down. Like that feels amazing. Like it's like they think that they're unable to do that because they've had their guard up for so long. But when you get around the right person that just makes you feel comfortable, like you
Yep.
can just let that down, it's such a good feeling.
Yep.
And I mean, for both ends,
Yep.
but more importantly for men because they're more afraid to like let that guard down because they think, either that's going to be used against them or the person's going to leave.
Yes.
So
That's
I
you
think,
nailed it. You nailed it right there. It's those two
yeah,
things.
so that was one of the main things I noticed when talking to guys and them being like wow, I feel really comfortable with you. I can actually be myself. Like I can just let go and be myself.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I didn't realize it was like such a big thing. But like I mean,
Yeah.
I knew it was important for me, but then I guess I didn't think about it that like yeah, that guys want to be able to do that. It's not like I do feel like there are a lot of men that want to be able to do that, but either
Yeah.
they don't know how or they're scared to. And I think in my situation with my ex, he's a good man. I know he wasn't intentionally wanting to make me feel unloved or alone. I just don't think he knew how. He didn't know how to be that person. So I think that there's men that like they want that but don't know how, and then there's also men that want that but they're scared to.
Yeah.
And so it's like
I think,
figuring.
and I think for anybody who's in this live, if you articulate the word vulnerable, if you compare it to courage, if you explain to him that vulnerability is courage, that it's almost a turn on for you, that it's almost exciting for you, and it makes you feel
Yeah,
protected, then
then
you
the
might just
then it amps them up.
yeah, you might just change the narrative because when men hear the vulnerable term, we think weakness,
Mm-hmm.
we think meek,
Yeah,
we think, we're going to get taken advantage of. Like you said, it's going to be used against us. So,
used again. Yeah,
you know, the new Brene Brown special on HBO. If anybody hasn't watched it, watch it.
I love her. Yeah.
She talks about vulnerability being courage and being courage. Because think about it this way, like our Navy SEALs, our Rangers, those guys are putting themselves in the most vulnerable position in life, which is death. They're
Yeah,
inserting themselves into those situations, and they're understanding that they have their men with them, their crew or whatever, and they need to make the right decisions. In that it takes an enormous amount of vulnerability to put yourself there. So
it does.
equate it to courage. Like those are the most courageous men, the most here, the heroes of our country or this world, like whatever. Like you have to start changing the dynamic of what the word vulnerability means to you as a woman when it comes to
Mm.
him. And if you can articulate that a little bit better, then he might soften up a bit.
Well, and I will say this for the guys in here that one way you can tell is if you know that you're with a woman that comes off as very genuine, like she's just a genuine woman, 9 times out of 10, it is safe to let your guard down with that person. Like
Yeah.
most genuine women that I know in my life personally, 100%. Like 100%. It's like if you meet someone they're genuine, you're safe. That's a safe place,
Yep.
you know.
Yep. And I attribute it to, I really kind of I accepted that thought when I watched David Goggins on YouTube, a 5-minute video, who is arguably the most baddest man on the planet. You know, did Navy SEAL training 3 times, did Ranger training, did all, like, holds world records for chin ups, for long distance running, like just the baddest man on the planet, right? And he
Mm,
was talking about men, get help. You are not strong enough to deal with all this yourself. PTSD is real. Go get help. So you're hearing it from the baddest man on the planet, and that's where I kind of like put that together. I was like, well, this guy is a freaking special
Badass.
ops.
Yeah.
He's the special ops Marine. Like this is the one person that you would want to save your life if you were in a really shitty situation. Like, and
Yeah.
he's telling you to go get help. So,
Yeah.
I can always
Um,
resort back to that. But
she said, I don't think most men are great judges of that, though. Ask a trusted woman. That is so true. Women will be able to tell if another woman is genuine or not. And I do think that because I feel like most men are automatically like, no women, all women are bad, or no, I won't say most, but like most men are already guarded no matter what
yeah,
from women.
yeah. Well, it's not just women; it's society too. We were raised by
Yeah.
traditional men who told us not to be vulnerable, not it was weak, all of the adjectives that go along with it. Just don't do it.
So I have something I've been wanting to ask you this. Okay, so because I brought up the single mom thing, but she said it bothers her what guys say about the single mom stuff, which I agree. Like I have seen so much crap about single moms on TikTok, but you know what the funny thing is? I've never had an issue with it in real life, and neither have any of my single mom friends. It's just TikTok for some reason. But I was
Yeah.
gonna ask you this: why is it that like men are looking like they look down at single moms, but like it's not the same for men? Because like I know my women friends, when they hear single dad, it's like a positive thing. They're like, oh, he has kids, he must know how to take care of a woman. Like it's a positive thing. But when a man hears single mom, automatically that, nope, red flag, she's used up, she's washed up. That what why is it like different?
Because
Like
they're
why
hurt.
single dads are like praised, but single
Because
moms are like put down?
because they're hurt, because they're paying child support, because they're not seeing their kids, because they're dealing with a toxic baby mama, because
Probably why.
you know whatever. He's just not healed. He doesn't get it. I could see a man having a boundary or choosing not to date a
Yeah.
woman with younger
Preference.
kids.
I understand that.
Preference.
Preference.
But if
Yes.
your preference is backed up with anger and resentment, then
That's not
there's
okay.
nothing you can do. It's just projection. It's the same old shit. It doesn't matter what it is, what the subject matter is. It's just projection. They're hurt and they're bitter, and they're just
Yeah.
projecting on you.
That's a good point though, because there's a difference between like having preferences, and I am totally okay. Everyone can have their preferences.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between that and just like being completely hateful. But it's like I guess I didn't experience any of this in real life. When I came on TikTok is when I saw this single mom hate, and I'm like, what is going on? And I have never seen a single thing about single dads getting hate. Like it's all single dads are praised, and I'm just like, what is happening? So it's just like really weird to me coming on TikTok and seeing all this.
Yeah, and let me touch on this before we get off, since there's people in here, since we've been talking about relationships, especially for women. You're going to find four different types of men. You're going to find the F boys. You're going to find, I don't really like using this term, but I have to use it because I haven't figured out another one to use. But you have the F boys, you have the simps, and
Narcissist.
you have the nice guys, and then you have the good men. I've done a
Yeah,
ton of videos on the difference between nice guys and good men, but
I
you
agree.
really
There's a
need you really need to pay attention to the nice guy, because you can really easily get fooled. And the way that you do that is by having your compatibility list made out, and by setting boundaries. So for instance, I made that video that said some lady had commented that all they want is sex. Okay, if those are the types of men that you're running into in the dating scene, then keep your pants on. Keep your pants on for 3 months, 2 months, whatever you choose, and you will weed out the F boys, for sure, because they're not gonna give their energy to something that they have to work towards, because they're only after one thing. The nice guy, the simp, is just a simp. He's gonna put you on a pedestal. He's gonna do whatever you want when you want, and you just really shouldn't do that to him. You should be able to identify that. you know, just please don't.
your little puppy dog.
Yes, exactly. But the nice guy, when you set that boundary of saying, "Hey, I don't want to get intimate for 3 months." Let's just use that as an example. The nice
Mm-hmm.
guy is going to push that boundary. He's going to
Oh, for sure.
constantly rub up against that boundary and try and get you to trying to get you to change your mind. He's going to be passive aggressive towards you. He's not going to respect you and what you have set for you. You know, the good man is going to have space for you. If you come into if he comes into a relationship with you and starts dating you, and you say, I don't want to be intimate for 3 or 4 or 5 months. I want to get to know you on a more emotional, personal level. He's going to say, okay, cool. Because
Yeah.
he's already got his, he doesn't, the relationship isn't valued on the sexual intimacy. It's valued on what you bring to the table. It's valued on
They see
interdependency.
your value as you are as a
And
person,
he's,
and
yeah,
what you can add value to the relationship. I 100% agree with that, because when I got back into the dating scene, it was like so horrible. But like, and I'm someone that I don't do hookups. Like, I was looking for a relationship type person. And so like immediate turn off for me was someone that like right away came at me with a bunch of sexual energy or brought up something sexual. Immediate turn off. Like, I was like, okay, I know what you're about. um so it was like I could tell the ones that really saw value in me and wanted to get to know me versus the ones that were just trying to get some, and I'm just like, no. So
yeah.
like now, I mean, that is just a red flag for me if anyone has like a ton of sexual energy up front or makes any comments about like something sexual in our first conversation. That's an immediate no.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
flirting's fine. And the truth of the matter is, if your boundaries are healthy and your boundaries are what, these are boundaries are there to protect you.
Yeah.
They're not, ultimatums are put forth to control you. Boundaries are there to protect you. So if
Yeah.
someone is saying like, well, I don't want to date you anymore unless we do A, B, and C, that's control, that's manipulation. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, and the nice guy too, he's going to be insecure. He's going to look for validation constantly from you. He's going to be all consumed in the relationship. He's going to be hyper vigilant of wanting to know where he stands or where the relationship stands. Like, these are all red flags that you need to look at, because the problem with the nice guy
Insecure.
is you won't figure it out until you're 6, 7 months, a year in, when he
Mm-hmm.
can't keep up the ruse anymore, and you're like, oh crap.
I just feel like a good man has such solid energy. Like, it's just like you could just tell that that person's energy is, they're just a solid person. Um I don't know how to explain it, but I can tell the difference between like a nice a nice guy and a good man.
Yeah, I mean, if a nice guy doesn't meet your need, this question, but what about a nice guy who doesn't meet your needs? I don't know if you're talking about your intimate needs. Is he nice if he doesn't listen and adds effort? I mean, those are all part of your compatibility list. Like, you should know exactly what you want. If he's not meeting your compatibility that you see forth for your life or your values, then you should cut him loose regardless. Question: would a man not feel rejected if you didn't want to embark on a physical relationship? No. Okay, here's the thing though too about it. If you're going to set that boundary with a good man, hey, I don't want to have physical intimacy for the first 3 months. But, and then you go in to explain what your thoughts are on physical intimacy, that it is important, that it is about connection, that you
Mm-hmm.
just don't want it. I see value in you, and I see this going somewhere. I want to make sure, I want to make sure that we connect on a deeper level, and then we will explore, make it very clear. Like, I love intimacy. I love blah, blah, blah. It's not that I don't want to do it. I do want to do it, but I want to connect with you deeper in the beginning.
Yeah, you want to get to
And,
know the person.
and a good man who's looking for more than just that is going to understand that. A nice
Mm-hmm.
guy who just needs the attention and needs to get laid,
For
he's not
validation.
going he's not he's not going to
They're
understand that.
looking
So it's
for validation.
yes. um
But yeah, I agree. If a good man sees value in you and sees a relationship, yeah, it'll be okay. Just, yeah,
yeah,
put those boundaries and then state your intentions, and then also let them know that you're doing that because you're interested in them and wanting to get to know them more.
yeah, and that's true too. She just said good men may not want a committed relationship though, and that's fine. That's and
Yeah,
if
it's
that
whatever
doesn't,
works for everyone. Everyone's
yeah,
different.
Yeah, like me right now, I consider myself a good man, and I just had an amazing. I mean, I have an amazing woman who really wants to be a part of my life, but I know, like I said earlier in our conversation, I cannot give her the time or the attention that I cannot give the relationship the time and attention that it needs. So it would be, it would be horrible of me to lead her on and say that I could when I can't. So I choose to be single like you for, by choice. I don't want to,
Yep.
I would love to have a relationship. I would love to do, but I would
But you can't give
sacrifice, I
yeah.
would sacrifice everything I'm working towards right now to be in a relationship, and I'm not willing to do that. So thank you so much for talking with me tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me again. It seemed like the best time to do it because literally both of our videos went viral like the same time, and it was kind of similar stuff. So I was like, you know what, we need to do another live.
Right. Aaron, you're
But
right too. Maybe not verbalizing a specific time because then they'll just wait it out. That's probably a good idea too,
I
but
agree with that. I wouldn't say 3 months on the dot.
yeah, just
Just give it
just
some
make
time.
it clear that it's a, you're interested in it. It's a big part of your life. You just want to, it's just about boundaries, and however that works for you in your personal life. Like, you just have to be able to
Oh,
weed
thank you.
out, yeah, weed them out. So yes, again, Amy, I love talking to you always, and we'll do this again, I'm sure. Um,
Yeah.
Anybody who doesn't follow Amy, it's at a.gracequotes on TikTok and Instagram, correct?
Yes. And on Instagram, I just share my quotes from both of my books. But yeah.
So, yep,
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And it's always a good conversation. So
yep.
should definitely do it again in another few months.
Yes. All right. I will talk to you soon, everybody. I'm getting off too. I will be back on. I won't be back on until next Thursday, but I have that live already scheduled too with a really good TikToker. You want to watch that one? He's more of a spiritual.
What's
He's
his name?
Jonathan Ruiz 1313. Jonathan Ruiz 1313. It's in,
Okay.
if you go to my bio, it's already scheduled. You can click on it and he'll be in there.
Okay.
But he's more of a spiritual TikToker, a religious, our Christian TikToker. So, but
Okay.
he's been through similar stuff that we have. So I'm gonna get his perspective on things too. But
Awesome.
yeah. All
All
right.
right.
I will talk to you
Well,
guys later. Amy, have a good night.
bye. Bye, you guys.
Bye.